And I'm really happy to meet you once again. Now we are going to learn something after at 1 o'clock, right? 1 p.m. So I expect your interaction, right? Then only you will be active. And also I will try my best to keep the class as active as possible. So I just want you to rename at least with your name and index number, right? Then and there I will call your name, right? And ask the question. So try to be active at the class, right? If you want to take notes, keep a notebook with you, right? And until we are meeting physical class, hopefully the lectures will be via Zoom, right? So it is your responsibility to be active as much as possible, right? So let me share the screen, right? Can you all see the screen? If you don't want to speak, you can use the chat box, or there is a hand raise option, so you can use it to let me know whether if there is any issue, right? So I think okay, fine, right? So before starting, let me clarify some of the rules or some expectations from you, right, throughout the class, so that I think we are going to spend 3 hours. So let's try to use it and get benefit, right? So I hope you can see the screen, right? Some of the session rules. I just expect you to follow these rules, right? First of all, there are some rules with the Zoom, right? With the Zoom, keep in mute, right? Keep in mute, right? Since we are, all of us are attending from home and offices, we are remote mode. Sometimes our family people may be discussing things. So if you, without knowing, or they don't know whether you are having classes or not, then if you don't speak, keep your mic in mute, right? If you want to speak up, please unmute it and speak, right? That's one rule, right? Another rule is make sure you are not expected to share the video. So in that case, you can make sure your videos are turned off, right? And another thing, you don't need to worry about data, right? Yeah, for since we are using Learn, right? Learn network, your use of Zoom is unmetered, right? So from whichever internet service provider you are connected to this, you will not have any data cost or data consumption. So you don't need to worry about that. There won't be any data charge for this, right? Data will not be consumed if you join through these links, right? These are some of the rules with the Zoom. And also, if you want to reply me via chat, you can use the chat, or there are some hand raise signal, so you can raise it, right? That's a rule with the Zoom. And then some of the class rules, please rename like this. For example, if your index is like this, SAM like that, please rename it to that and with your name, right? With your name. And when, with regard to attendance, right? With regard to your attendance, so now the session is 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., right? So within these 3 hours, at any 2 instances, maybe I will not say when I will ask the attendance, right? So I will give 5 minutes time, maybe in 2 instances, right here and here. Within 5 minutes, in the chat box, you have to leave your name with index. It means you have to stay up until 1 to 4 in order to make the attendance. So within these 3 hours, at 2 instances, in 2 occasions, I will ask you to send your name with index number in the chat box. So you have to make it. So ultimately, if I receive the index number in these 2 chances only, I will consider it as participated, right? Sometimes some people, they join, then after 1 or few minutes they leave, right? So that's why you have to stay from the starting to end. In any given 2 times, I will ask you to leave your index, right? So that's one rule. Another rule, when I continue the class, right? So since we are continuing via online, we are requested to continue the lecture in English, right? Sometimes we have to give the recording of the lecture. But in some cases, if you don't understand English, at the end of the class, you can ask me any questions related if you don't understand the language, right? But wherever, when I teach, if you don't understand anything, right? Whenever, if you don't understand anything, please stop me there, right? Stop me and ask the question, right? Don't need to worry about that. Even if you don't want to ask via mic, you can use the chat box, right? So this is actually, it's not a theory subject, right? If it is a physical class, we can have it really in a very interactive mode. Unfortunately, since we have to conduct the class via online, we will try our level best to make it as useful as possible, right? So are you all ready? Did you understand what I am asking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So நான் என்ன செய்வேன்னா 1 to 4ல இந்த 3 ஹவர்ஸ்ல ஏதோ ஒரு 2 சந்தர்ப்பத்தில் உங்களோட இண்டெக்ஸ் நம்பரை உங்களோட நேமோட chat boxல போட சொல்லுவேன். நீங்க அந்த 5 minutesக்குள்ள போடணும். Right? It means from 1 to 4 you have to be in the class. Right? I will not ask in a fixed time. I will randomly tell, okay, you just send your index number for attendance, then you have to put your name with index number. Like that, in a single class or sessionல 2 தரம் attendance எடுப்பேன். ஸோ அதில் 2லையும் யாரெல்லாம் மார்க் பண்ணிக்கிறாங்களோ அவங்க தான் attendance attend பண்ணணும்னு சொல்லி கன்சிடர் பண்ணப்படும், right? So that's a request made by a coordinator, right? Okay, now let's come to our subject. Right. So our subject is teaching methodology in IT. Teaching methodology in IT. So I will try to continue the class as interactive as possible. It is your responsibility to interact, right, and keep the class active as much as possible. Now let me see the participants. Don't need to worry, yeah? You all are friends, then don't need to worry, right? So if I ask any question, you can answer, you can tell your own answer. Don't need to worry about others, right? Don't need to worry about others, right? Okay. So how many of you are interested in teaching IT? Now you are students, you are learning IT. So how many of you are interested in teaching IT, or you want to become teachers, or you want to become lecturers, or you want to teach other people IT, how many of you are interested? There is a hand signal, you can mark it, right? If you are interested to teach IT. Right. Okay, there are hands coming in. Okay, good. Like 8 people have raised their hands. Okay, lower your hands. Okay, right. And another question, you can leave it in chat. I will give 4 options, right? I will give 4 options in, and just answer in the chat box, right? So the question is, how do you learn best? So the option number one, learn by doing. Learn by watching. Third one, learn by reading. Learn by right. Okay, there are 4 cases. Can you just let me know which is the best way that you learn, whether by learning by doing, or learn by watching, or learn by doing, or learn by attending lectures? Which is the best way that you learn? So first of all, as students or individuals, we need to know which is the best way or the most effective way that I learn. Some people will be better learning by doing. So if they want to do it, then only they will learn. So we are different people, right? So our learning methodologies are different. Some people, if we do something, we will learn better. For example, if you want to learn program, so we want to do it, then if we do only, we will learn like that. So that method will work best for us. Some people, if they watch it someone else doing, then they will learn. So watching works better for them. Some people, they want to read it, they need textbook, they want to read it and understand, then they learn better. Some people, they want to attend the classes, right? They want someone to teach them to understand. So these are some of the styles that we learn. So I am asking just to make you realize which method works best for you. That's right. There's a question. So I asked the best method out of these 4. Answer the best one. Of course, we learn by all these methods. So which is the most effective way for you? I'm not getting any response. Only 8 responses are there. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1 has more preferences. Right. Right. Otherwise, you can even rank it also, for which we give number 1, for which. So let me put this. For example, sometime we may learn by doing. Of course, these are 4 ways we learn, right? Even we get benefit by attending lectures, by reading, by watching and doing, right? And also, certain things may work best by another. For example, if you want to learn programming, I give the scenario now, right? You tell which is the best way, right? I tell the scenario, now you tell me which is the best way. Swimming. You want to learn swimming, right? What is the best way we can learn swimming? Watching YouTube video? Or by doing? After watching 10 hours YouTube video of how to swim, and if you get into the water, what will happen? Just by after watching the video, if you start to swim in the water, what will happen? Sometimes it will end up in a very risky effort, right? Right. So first one, swimming. Now tell me, now we want to learn to read a foreign language. What is the best way? We want to learn to read a foreign language. We want to read, so we can't learn by reading because we don't know how to read that foreign language. And also sometime maybe watching may be helpful. People are how to read, and also of course this will work better. We learn from someone who already knows it and teaching, right? Right. So likewise, for different cases, we are learning from different things, right? Now tell me how a child learn. Maybe a small baby, they will learn by watching parents or their siblings doing something, then they learn from them. And also they learn from doing, right? For example, if they want to learn how to ride a bike, they first start, they fall, they sleep, and little by little they improve and they learn, right? So these are some of the ways we learn, and some of the ways are effective compared to other when it comes to a different case, right? Likewise, so this is I just asked you just to bring you to a subject. Now another question, right? How many of you hate the teaching profession? How many of you hate teaching? You don't want to become teachers? Maybe no one? Okay, it's good. How many of you hate teaching? You don't want to become a teacher, or you don't want to come to a teaching field? Right, maybe. Oh, let me know later, right? Okay. Right. Some people are telling they don't want to become teachers. Okay, of course, no problem. Right, since you are from IT, sometimes you may want to work in industry, right? No problem. Now let's come to the slide, right? So this is your subject, right? Teaching methodology in IT. So the course code is HND IT 2441, right? Teaching methodology in IT. So to learn this module, or the method you are learning in second year. Why? Because teaching is also another best way to learn, right? So at least if you don't want to become a teacher, or you don't want to come to a teaching field, you should understand that teaching is one of the best way to learn things, right? If you want to remember anything, try to teach others, right? If you learn, there is a quote, right? Learn to teach. If you learn anything with the ambition or with the mission of teaching, you will learn better, you will concentrate better, you will try to understand better, right? So whenever you learn anything, you try to learn with the intention of teaching it to someone else, right? So someone who is learning for himself will learn a little. The moment you explain it to others, it's a form of teaching. The moment you explain things to others, you learn better. You repeat it again and again, then you learn something new from every time you teach someone else, right? So you all should accept that teaching is one of the best way to learn, right? You don't need to teach to in a professional manner. Even among your friends, if you understand a subject, you can teach them, right? Whether they understand or not, you understand better, you learn better, right? So that's why whenever you learn anything, try to have this intention. I'm learning because I want to teach this to someone else. Otherwise, let's say tomorrow you have a presentation, you have to get ready, then you learn better, right? You learn better because your thinking is somewhat changed, right? You are learning, okay, tomorrow I have a presentation, I have to explain everything. Then your focus, interest, attention, everything will be very high compared to others. So that's why this subject is offered to you, right, in semester 2. Even if you go to any industry, if you go to any IT company, you will work as a team, right? Sometime you will have to mentor your team. If you are a senior person, you will have to mentor your team because you want to teach your team and make sure your team is very competent, right? Your team is very competent, knowledgeable, experienced enough to complete the task because you want your team to win. You want your team to complete the task. So it is where also you have to teach, right? So don't think teaching just as a classroom teaching, right? Even the when you grow up, there are different situations you will have to teach. Not the IT also. Sometimes when you become a parent, you will have to teach your kids, right? As a brother and sister, sometimes you have to teach your younger brother, younger sister, right? So in these cases, you'll have to teach. So you should better understand about teaching and learning, right? You have to better understand teaching and learning. The definition, right? Also remember, for this module, you don't have any standard lecture notes, right? You don't have any standard lecture notes. It means in LMS you won't have any lecture notes, right? But anyway, I will share the slide that I present to you at the end of the class, right? So, and also if you want to take notes, you can keep an exercise book with you and take some notes. It is also good that you will be actively participating, because attending a session continuously for 3 hours via online may be a daunting task, right? Sometimes it will be very uncomfortable for you. So, but anyway, on the other hand, if you think you have to come to the campus and you have to learn, so now you are learning from your home. Even we all are IT people, right? We all are IT people. If we blame technology, then who else will accept it, right? So we should try to accept. Yes, I can send the notes, right? I will send these notes, but only the only what you see in the slide. So better, if you want to take some notes, you can keep exercise book and mark it, right? So this is a long slides I prepared, but anyway, whatever I cover in one lecture, I will make it as one slide and I will share it at the end of the session, right? So that way it is easy for you to follow up. So let's have a look of your past paper with this subject, right? Then you may get some idea about the subject, right? So I don't have other past paper. I had only this 2016 past paper, right? So I just downloaded this one just to show you what sort of questions are you are having, right? So this is 2016 paper, but anyway, I hope the format is same now also. So you have to answer 5 questions and each total 3 hours. So very simple questions and you all can try to take a good marks, right? This is one reason you are learning the subject. You have to pass the exam, but this is not the only reason, right? Learning this teaching methodology is one of the very helpful for you. Even when you go to industry, there's a added benefit, right? You know someone, how you know to train people, right? It's one of the very good skills, right? One of the very good skills. If you know how to train someone or how to teach someone else, that's one of the key skills, right? Because it's one of the key skill, because many people, they are good learners, but they can't convey the message to others in a precise manner. நிறைய பேர் நல்ல கட்டிக்காராக்கள் இருப்பாங்க, ஒரு விஷயத்தை அடுத்தாக்களுக்கு அவங்க விளங்குற மாதிரி சொல்றது அவங்களுக்கு கஷ்டமாயிடும். So for that we need to know how to teach others. What are the ways in which we can teach others, right? So how effectively we can communicate our message. That's one of the key skills. So here there are some questions. So if you go through all these questions, you get some idea about the subject. So define classroom management. So if you are teaching in a classroom environment, so we have to manage the classroom. So in this question, you are asked to define classroom management. So what is mean by classroom management? So later, at the end of the semester or during last minute we can discuss about past paper and answers. Right now, in the first session, I'm just giving this idea. Then when you learn, you know, okay, there was a question about this. Then you will actively participate, right? That's what I'm trying to do. So define classroom management. You have to define what is mean by classroom management, and also describe the principles for classroom management. What are the principles? அதாவது கிளாஸ் ரூம் மேனேஜ் பண்ணுற சம்மந்தமாக என்ன தத்துவங்கள் இருக்குன்னு சொல்லி you have to describe. And then how can a good IT teacher manage the classroom effectively? So, what are the ways in which IT teacher can manage the classroom effectively? And then describe the 4 primary reasons for disruptive behavior in a classroom with relevant examples. It means describe the 4 primary reasons for the disruptive behavior. For example, in some classes, some students will be disturbing the classes, right? Sometimes they will be talking with other friends, or sometimes they will play with their phone or something else, right? So in that, what's the reason? So we have to mention the 4 primary reasons for such kind of behaviors. These are the one question you have been asked in a paper, right? This is all about classroom management. So you can see this as a summary in question 1. It is all about how to manage the classroom. So teacher, when you teach, there is a classroom, there will be students, you are teaching, then there is a question about this, right? So if I want to mark it here, so the paper is about first part, classroom management. You should know how to manage the classroom, because there will be sometimes 20 people or there will be 50 people. Then if there are some students, showing this disruptive behavior, it will affect other students also. Sometimes you may not be able to teach it. Sometimes the class will be very disruptive and so on. So this is all about classroom management. So there is a question about classroom management. Now, question number 2, if you see, write 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of group and pair work in student-centered learning. So there are different learning methods or teaching methods we will learn, right, one by one. So there are different learning and teaching methods. So here we are asked to write 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of group and pair work in student-centered learning. Group work, you become as a group and you do it, right? Pair work means 2 people working, right? So interchangeably 2 people will be working. So here you are asked to 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of group and pair work in student-centered learning. For example, if we can think, if we work as a team, if we work in a team, what happens in a team if there are 4 people? What will happen? Sometime maybe, for example, these 2 will be working. These 2 may not work. They will depend on these 2 people when we work as a group. So if you think in a classroom, you can think about, among yourselves, if you have observed it, those who work will prefer to do individual assignment. Those who work and they can manage, they will prefer individual assignment. Those who try to hide themselves in a group, they will prefer, sir, group assignment. Sir, we will do group assignment, like that. Right, so each method has some advantages and disadvantages, right? Each method has some advantages and disadvantages. And the second question, name 5 characteristics of a group and pair work and briefly describe 2 of them. So question 3, briefly explain the 4 facts related to student engagement and preparation of group work. So here you have to explain 4 facts related to student engagement. Student engagement means so now lecture is being conducted. Students are responding to questions. They are actively participating. They are responding. They are asking their doubts and so on. Then the students are engaged. You are not getting any reply, right? Students are remaining silent. They are not responding to any questions. They are not asking any questions. Then students are not engaged. So here you have to explain the 4 facts related to student engagement and preparation of group work. So based on this question number 2, we can categorize this as so first one was classroom management, and then second one teaching methods, right? Now come to the third part, right? So the question 3, so here, so this is, I'm just showing you the 2016 past paper. So when you understand what kind of questions are coming in the exam, so when you learn also, you can learn better. You will give more importance, right? That's why I'm telling, I'm showing this in the very first class. But remember, passing exam is not only the reason, right? The subject is very useful if we can together learn in an effective manner with your cooperation and with your interaction, right? So question number 3, explain the 3 type of teaching aids with examples. So there are 3 types of teaching aid. Teaching aid means when you teach as a support, as an aid to make the teaching more easy, there are some teaching aids you can use. So here you have to explain the 3 types of teaching aid with suitable examples. So for that you are getting 6 marks. And question number 2, in question 3 second question, write 6 advantages of using teaching aids in an IT classroom. Write 6 advantages of using teaching aids in an IT classroom. So what are the 6 advantages we are getting when we use teaching aids in an IT classroom? For example, we are using projector inside the classroom, so to teach, to show how to do, how to code and so on. Then like that, when we use teaching aids, what are the 6 advantages we can get? So that's what this question is about. And then third one, why do you think PowerPoint as an effective teaching aid? Briefly explain. For that you are getting 8 marks. So the question number 3 is about what? Can you tell? Question 3, if you want to categorize it to a specific area, what it is about? Question 3. Question 3 is about good. I am getting some similar responses. It is about teaching aids. What are the supportive materials we can use to effectively teach? Then question number 4. So write 4 characteristics of a good IT teacher. So what are the 4 good characteristics of a IT teacher? For someone to be a good IT teacher, what are the characteristics? What are their attributes or what are their characteristics? So question number 2 is supposed to be 2. A teacher's role has changed from the past to present. Briefly explain. There's a statement. A teacher's role has changed from the past to present. Briefly explain. Of course, even after the COVID-19, the teacher had been teaching via the physical classes. Now we are learning via online classes, right? So even before maybe before the invention of projector and software, everything was written in the whiteboard or blackboard and a student would take notes. Nowadays it's not like that, right? And even there are so many internet online resources, so a teacher does not need to teach everything in the classroom now. So like that, the teacher's role has changed from the past to present. So here we have to simply briefly explain that. So for that you are getting 6 marks. And then briefly describe the roles of the interactive teacher. Briefly describe the roles of the interactive teacher. What does this mean? Interactive. Hasir, are you there? So what we mean by interactive teacher? So interactive means, you know, right? So without interactive means what? No, interactive teaching means interaction means there are two people. Let's say there's a teacher, there are students. Without considering the students, teacher is just teaching in the whiteboard. Here the teacher is not interactive. Interactive means there is a communication between these two people. So in our case, for example, if I am teaching, I can't teach without considering you, right? I have to ask question. I need to get your answer. I need to try my level best to keep you engaged. You should respond to my questions. Then the communication should be both way. That is mean by interactive teaching, right? This is important, right? You can't teach on your own. We should interact with the students, right? So it's interaction means we are communicating each other. That is mean by interaction, right? So teacher's role, then we have been asked, briefly describe the roles of an interactive teacher. At least you have to mention 5 roles. So then we can categorize here. The 4th question is about roles of a teacher? What are the good things about what are the skills a good teacher will have? What are the roles an interactive teacher will have to play? Did you understand the meaning of interactive? Is it clear? Interaction means there's a both way communication. This is teacher, right? Here is a student. Here are students, right? Now the teacher just teaching on the whiteboard without considering students. Then he is not an interactive teacher. Interaction means there is a conversation between these two. Teacher is teaching, in between he is asking questions, students are also asking doubts, he is clarifying, and the class is very active, interactive. Right? This is called interactive. So it's interactive is the good habit. Right? So the fourth category is maybe you're the fourth key area the questions are from is roles of a teacher, right? Roles of a teacher. Let's come to the question number 5. Right. So the question 5, write the 4 different stages in a teaching lesson. So when you teach, there are different stages, right? There are different stages of teaching. So we asked to write the different roles and then briefly explain about micro teaching. There's a concept called micro teaching. So here it is asked. So this is we will learn, right? I'm just giving some idea about the syllabus from exam paper, from your past paper, because we don't have a fixed slide, right? So I have prepared the notes for you. So based on these past paper, so I'm just trying to give some idea at the very first class so that you know these are the contents of my subject, and also you know these kind of questions are there in the past paper. So when you learn, you know, okay, there was a question like this in my past paper, so I need to learn this area like that. So that's what I'm trying to give this in the first class. So micro teaching, what are the 3 types of practices in a teaching lesson? Explain briefly, right? So question number 5 is about, maybe there is a area in teaching called lesson planning. Lesson planning. So if you want to teach, you have to plan the lesson, how you are going to do the lessons, right? So lesson planning is one area that we have to study. And finally, right. Briefly, question number 6. So anyway, you have to choose 5, but we have to learn everything. So in the exam paper, in based on 2016 past paper, there are 6 questions. Out of 6, you have to answer 5 questions within 3 hours. So briefly explain the skills of questioning. So as a teacher, when you ask a question, it's one of the skills, right? Asking question is one of the skills. You have to ask very meaningful question. You have to ask very meaningful question, right? So then briefly explain the skills of questioning. What are the skills you need to ask effective questions? Is a one area. Then discuss the differences between open-ended question and closed-ended question. Discuss the differences between open-ended questions and closed-ended question. So this is, let me give some idea about open-ended question and closed-ended question. So open-ended question means you ask a question, you ask one question, the answer can be anything. Answer is very open. Answer is very broad. Sometimes you may not get the expected answer. Sometimes you may not get the expected answer. For example, you ask a question, are you good in Java? Are you good in Java? People will give various answers. People will give various answers, right? Some will say yes, no, little, very good, and so on. Sometimes someone just know very basic, but he may think, okay, I know very good in Java, then he can just give the answer yes. So the purpose of the question is changing, right? So this kind of open-ended question, there is no any specific options to answer or choose from. So these kind of questions we call open-ended. This is also useful, right? This is not a negative one, but we have to use appropriately. For example, if you get the idea of the person or the student, we can ask open-ended question. Sometimes if you give a closed question, you cannot get the actual feeling about the student. You can't get what the student's feeling. For example, what about the subject? Do you understand the subject? If you give a closed answer, then student may not answer what they actually feel. So the closed question means the same question I can ask in a closed way. Rate your programming skill in Java. So now you give a value 0, very low, and 10, expert. Now you have set the boundary. You have set the boundary to your question. If anyone wants to answer the question, they will have to answer between 0 and 10. Now you have set the boundary, right? So you have closed the answering options. So it's called closed in the question. So now people will answer. If anyone doesn't know anything about, then 0. If he is very good, then other people may answer in between. So there's a closed, whatever the answer coming from anyone, it will be within this range. Or yes or no question you can ask, and so on. We give the options. Out of the options, only the student has to answer. Those kind of questions we call closed-ended questions, right? Closed-ended questions. So here it is asked, discuss the differences between open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. So for that you are getting 6 marks. And then finally, effective questioning is important in the classroom. There is a statement, effective questioning is important in the classroom. Do you agree? Explain your answer. So there is a statement saying effective questioning is important in the classroom. Do you agree? Of course, yes. Then we have to explain the answer. So for that, it's 20 marks. So altogether, 100 marks. Then this is about the sixth area is questioning. These are the key areas we are taking from 2016 past paper. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the other papers. If you have those papers, you can share it to me. Then I can do the analysis and I can come up in a more better way what to cover within your syllabus, right? So these are some of the key areas about the syllabus. So classroom management, how to manage our classroom effectively, and then what are the teaching methods available, and then teaching aids, what are the aids or assistant tools or techniques we can use as a aid support to teaching, and then roles of a good teacher, especially as an IT teacher, what are the roles we will have to play in order to teach effectively. So okay, now we have passed 1 hour, so let me summarize what we have covered so far, right? So we just introduction, we introduced the subject. I'm just briefing what we discussed so far. I just introduced the subject, teaching methodology in IT. Then I asked a couple of questions for you to think yourself. And then we reviewed 2016 past paper just to understand what are the key areas we are having in questions, right? So there were classroom management, classroom, it's about teaching methods, teaching tools or teaching aids, then characteristics of a good teacher, then questioning, how to effectively question, and then we had one area called lesson planning. These are the 6 areas questions were coming from in 2006 based on 2016 past paper. So hopefully we will cover all this as our syllabus. In addition to that, now you have shared 2017 paper also. So if there are some new things, that part also I can include that, right? So these are what we have studied so far. So now let's take 5 or 10 minutes for question and answer. If you have any questions, kindly ask me now, right? If you have any questions or to add something, if you have any feedback, kindly let me know. Is it actually understandable? I am just using very simple English. I don't know whether I'm fast. I think I'm very slow. If you tell I'm very fast, I can even reduce that. I'm using very simple English. I hope you can understand, right? If you don't understand, feel free to stop me. Now the definition. So what is teaching methodology or teaching methods? Teaching methods is the stimulation or guidance, direction and encouragement for learning, right? So teaching methodology, why we basically teach, we want to make sure our students or the learner is learning, right? So we don't need to call student, right? So rather it's better to call learner, right? Student, normally we have a thinking that school children are student, right? But learner can be any person. Even I am following a course, then I am a learner. Now you are following HND, IT, you are a learner, right? So teaching is, so basically teaching methods are the stimulation. What is stimulation? Stimulation means what? Stimulation means we stimulate, for example, so why we actually you wouldn't have had your vaccine, COVID vaccine. So I had my vaccine. Why I had my vaccine? Why we had to have the vaccination? Because to stimulate our immune system, to stimulate our immune system. Likewise, that's the meaning of stimulation, right? So if I want to tell it in Tamil, தூண்டுறது ஒன்று ஸ்டிமுலேட் பண்றேன்னா ஒன்று தூண்டுறதுக்கு நாங்க செய்யறது தான் ஸ்டிமுலேஷன், ரைட்? Right. Thank you very much. So that's the meaning, right? தூண்டுதல். So we are teaching methods. Through the teaching method, we stimulate, we provide the guidance, we help the learner, and also we show them the correct way. So that's the direction, right? We show them the correct way, and also we encourage them, we make them interest towards the subject. So these are all what meant by teaching method. So it is the stimulation, guidance, direction and encouragement for learning. Right, then when we teach, there is an objective, there are some objectives, that's very important, right? When you teach anything, there should be some objectives why you are teaching. So if you ask the question the other way, now let's say I am teaching you, then if you assume me as a teacher, then you are learners, right? I should have some objectives why I am teaching to you. As learners, you should have some objective why you are learning. Without objectives, without specifying the purpose, this learning will not happen, right? Learning and teaching will not happen. So we have to clearly specify the objectives. So sometime we can call learning outcomes. Right? Learning outcomes. So for each of the subject, you would have some learning outcomes. It means after learning this subject, what are the outcomes, what are the skills, or what are the abilities that the learner has to have, right? Likewise, for example, now you are teaching someone. Now, let's say I am teaching you programming, for example. What are the objectives? You should be able to write any program for a given algorithm. You should be able to test the code that you write. So like that, there can be different objectives. So in the case of teaching also, we should have objectives, right? So based on our learning objective, only, we make the strategy, right? What are the objectives? Then we make the strategy. For example, let's say now we are training a person to run 100-meter in Olympic. 100-meter in Olympic. Can we train him in our street? Can we train him? Can we train the person in our street? No, we have to take him to a similar international stadium and we have to give the training there in such a way that other runners are practicing. Right? So based on the objective only, our strategies will change and define, right? So instructional methods are used by teachers to create learning environment. Instructional method. So instruction. So we give some instruction for the learners to follow. So then they are following that. Then we create the learning environment through that, right? We create the learning environment through that. Can you tell how many of you have taught anything, whatever the subject? Even for 1 or 2, even for your juniors, how many of you have taken 1 or 2 class? At least I have taught 1 class to my any audience. How many of you have teaching experience? Don't need to think you worked as a school or you did it in a professional way. Even among your friends, if you have explained something, then you are a teacher. In that particular moment, you are a teacher, right? Right. There are people, and also programming also, I am just giving some advice. If you want to know teaching, if you want to learn programming, whatever you know about programming, try to teach it. So like I told you at the beginning, there is a huge difference between these two persons. So one person learning for him. There's another person, he is learning with the interest of teaching to others. Who will learn better? This person, the 1 or 2? Someone learning just for him. So he want to apply that, so he's learning. Another person, he is learning with the interest of teaching. Okay, in future I have to teach this to others. Then who will learn more effectively? So number 2. Why? Why number 2? So for example, here in today's class, when an oral repair solran, கிளாஸ் முடியக்குள்ள உதாரணத்துக்கு ஐம் ஜஸ்ட் கிவிங் எக்ஸாம்பிள். உதாரணத்துக்கு இந்த கிளாஸ் முடியக்குள்ள நான் ஏன்ற ஒரு ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டை இப்போ சொல்றேன், கிளாஸ் முடியக்குள்ள இன்றைக்கு நீங்க தான் நம்ம படிச்ச எல்லாத்தையும் ரிவைஸ் பண்ணணும்னு சொல்லி ஒரு ஆள்கிட்ட இப்போ நான் சொல்லன்னு சொன்னா அவர் கிளாஸ்ல அட்டென்ட் பண்றது எப்படி? அவர் மிச்சம் கூட இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் எடுத்து அட்டென்ட் பண்ணுவார் என்ன, பிகாஸ் he had to present again. So that's what I am telling. When you learn with the intention of teaching it to others, then your concentration will be very high compared to others. So if every one of you can have that kind of mentality, then it will be very, very effective, right? And also you will actually learn something from class, right? Right. So that's what the meaning, right? Right. This is one important area. Teaching strategies classification. Teaching strategies classification. So this is we don't need it, right? So teaching strategies classification. First one, teacher controlled teaching. Teacher controlled teaching. Monologue or autocratic teaching. It means teacher decides what to teach. Teacher decides what to teach, right? It's like monologue. Monologue means there is no actual participation from students. Teacher, okay, I am the teacher, so this is what student has to learn, and then teacher himself or herself controlling the class. So the teacher wants the class according to her wish, her wish or his wish. The teacher doesn't worry about what the audience or the learners are feeling, right? This is called teacher control teaching, right? It's like autocratic, means teacher is the only decision maker. Sometimes this may be necessary, sometimes this is not good. So the second one, interactive procedure of teaching. So interactive. So there is an interaction between the teacher and the learner. So dialogue teaching. Monologue means, for example, radio is a monologue. You can listen radio, you can't speak to it. You can listen the radio, right? Clearly understand what is meant by monologue. You can listen to it, but you can't talk to it. Radio, TV, like that. Monologue. Dialogue means like the phone conversation. You can also listen what the other person is talking, then also you can talk to the other person as well. It's a dialogue. So interactive, that's what I mean by interaction. So interactive learning, this is better. And then learning controlled teaching. Learning controlled teaching. So self-study. So learning controlled teaching. And then group control teaching, right? Kind of group learning through groups. Group control teaching. This is clinical teaching method. This is not applicable here. This is in case of psychology or medical field, we apply this one, right? Clinical teaching method, right? So now we can discuss in detail later, right? Right. So here, teacher control teaching, monologue or autocrat, right? So here, the control is within the teacher. The control is within the teacher in this teacher control teaching. So usually monologue in the sense teacher will be teaching. Students will not interact with the teacher, then it becomes monologue, like I told you, a radio or a TV, right? So this is useful sometimes not useful. So examples, lecture method. So lecture method, where the lecturer will do the lecturing. The learner will be listening or watching his teaching, right? Lecture method. Like otherwise, demonstration method. The demonstrator demonstrates us how to do things, how to program, how to design the website, how to build a robotics, like that. Demonstration method. A lecture demonstration. Team teaching method. Within the team, one person will be teaching. And individualized instruction. Individualized instruction means we are instructing on an individual basis. So one person we give some task, another person we give another task, like that. These are all comes under teacher control teaching. Is it useful? Of course, this is useful because certain things. So teacher is more knowledgeable compared to student. In that case, in some cases, teacher should have more control. Then only the expected outcome of a teacher will be achieved.